It's been a little while since we did a tour of the tanks, and a lot's changed. There's more tanks than there used to be. I keep new species, and I've even got a couple of fish now as well. Not only that, but some of the stuff that I used to do, I now do a little bit differently. So let's take a look at all of these tanks. Welcome to the Shrimp Shack. So this is where the magic happens. We've got 2 racks set up here for tanks. We've got another rack over in the corner that's for stock for our website and all of my chemicals and aquascaping materials that I keep for future projects. And then our lovely high-tech 80 litre just over there. Lots has changed since you saw the first version of the Shrimp Shack. It was more of just a shrimp rack back then. We've added new tanks, we've added new species, we've even started doing marine. So let's go through tank by tank, see what we're keeping now, and talk a little bit about what's in each one. This tank here is probably one of the most basic and least interesting of the shrimp room. Not to say that it's boring, but this started off as just a plant holding tank and a little bit of a quarantine tank for any fish that we were holding for future projects. I don't have any future fish projects happening or planned for a little while. So I decided to chuck some fish in here and make this tank a project tank itself. The scape's nothing to look at. It's purely just a place for our rice fish to learn about them and see if we can get them to breed. I still use this to hold plants that I want to save for future episodes and aquascapes and things like that. But there's not really much more to say other than that. It's a 37 litre tank. I run it with a sponge filter, the same as I run all of the tanks in this room, bar the 80 litre. This next tank is an 18 litre rimless tank. And this is what some of you guys that watch on TikTok or have seen some of our shorts might know as Project Shadow Panda. This is one of my favourite tanks, and this is a Caradina tank. As always, we run a sponge filter, a bunch of moss, and then just active substrate for the shrimp, as they are Caradinas. In here, we've got a mix of extreme blue bolts and shadow pandas. So the reason that we're mixing 2 types of Caradina shrimp in here is because we are actually looking to crossbreed them. If you take extreme blue bolts and pandas and cross those, you create shadow pandas. You will also get more blue bolts and pandas from the young, but some of those pandas will be born with a blue hue in the white part of their shell, and that makes them a shadow panda. Over generations of line breeding and selective breeding, we can enhance that blue coloration that comes out in the shell, and that's what we're looking to do here. So as you can see, some of these guys have started to get that blue in their shell, but we're looking to make it even darker. The next tank we have here is another 18 litre rimless. Once again, it's just a bunch of moss, a little shrimp hide or 2. We do have a Nymphea tiger lotus in here too and some Boost Philandra, but all of that's just accompanied by a sponge filter. With Caradina breeding setups, I try and keep it as basic as possible and limit the amount of plants I have in there. Any plants do tend to be epiphytes and mosses. Now we're very lucky, there's not many in this colony. It is a newer colony. But we've got metallic purple Nanashis, and these are a really awesome Caradina shrimp. And I'll make sure that I get a video out there specifically for these guys at some point because they really are beautiful. Moving on to this tank, this is a 19 litre. As you can see, again, simple setup, some Boost Philandra and some moss, a sponge filter and active substrate. And this is for our extreme reds. These guys have several different names in the hobby. Some call them ruby red, some call them extreme red, some call them red King Kongs. This is one of our newer colonies. So we haven't quite bred a large number of these yet, but these guys are pretty nice. Moving on to the next tank. This one is one of my favourites. This is a 24 litre tank, and I've come to call this one Crystal Canyon. Usually I wouldn't aquascape a Caradina tank, but this tank was the first tank that I ever scaped when I became a content creator. It didn't look like this back then. There was a different version of it that became overgrown with green hair algae in the summer, so I tore it down and rebuilt it even better. You can actually see the building of this tank over in our shorts as well on YouTube if you want to see that. But this is where we house our crystal reds. In here, there's a mix of S, double S and triple S grade crystal red shrimp. Again, these guys are a Caradina species, and they're a true classic. Moving on to another one of our scaped tanks is our little nano jungle scape over here. Now, this is a super special tank. This tank started off its journey as a TikTok subscriber tank when we first started doing TikTok properly. The purpose of this tank was to give something back to my community members on TikTok that paid a monthly subscription to be part of our channel. And what I did was every week I gave them a choice of what they wanted the next stage of the tank to be. And what we ended up choosing week by week was Limpopo black sand over a layer of aqua soil to start a planted tank. And then we chose leopard stone and redwood. And then we went for an Asian style scape with lots of Asian plants like Cryptocoryne, Petchy Pink, mosses, Lindophyllus sessiliflora, and a bunch of other ones too. There did used to be an alien betta in here, but now it's just home to our strawberry rasporas. This tank is coming towards the end of its life though. Some of the plant growth is starting to dip a little bit, even before I added these floating plants and trimmings into the top. And it's been a while that it's been running, so it's time for something different. And I do have a good plan for what we're going to do. So keep an eye out for the rescape of this tank on the channel in the future. Now we're going to head down to the middle row of tanks. So on this row, we got 4 tanks side by side. These are all 19 litre tanks. In our first tank, we have got some Neocaradinas this time, and these are yellow fire golden backs. And I would say these are probably one of the more vibrant cherry shrimp colours that you can get. These guys are awesome. They sell pretty well in the store too. These are green jades, one of my favourites. They've got good variation in their shells, so you get some that get this sort of like coppery look to them. Like a rustiness. Yeah, definitely one of my favourites. Again, all the breeding tanks, just super simple setups, just moss, boost philandra on wood, maybe the odd nymphea. So this tank here is one of our Caradina tanks. It is due a reset very soon, so most of the shrimp that were in here have been moved out. But we do have a red galaxy tiger and a black galaxy tiger still in here. And we've also got our metallic snowflake breeding pair, Claudia and Klaus. And I'm happy to say, Claudia is front and centre, which never really happens. She's not wearing her best dress today. Metallic shrimp don't always look the same every single day, so she's looking quite dark. But I'll make sure that we get some more footage of her when she's in her blue dress, looking all shiny and nice. Claudia's probably my most prized shrimp. I would be very upset if anything ever happened to her, because she is gorgeous. Same as the other Caradina tanks, just a sponge filter. I've got some Rickia on the wood, and I'm trying to revive a couple of stem plants that weren't doing so well in the other tank, just to make the most out of the last bit of that aqua soil before we reset the tank. This one here is another Caradina tank, and this is home to our blue steels. So these Caradinas are more or less a byproduct from when you're trying to breed boas. So when you breed boas, you will get a lot of blue steels come out, as well as boas and boa culls, but they look pretty nice. Easy to mistake at first for a blue bolt, but there are some differences, and a lot of it's in the texture of their shell. I will stop here at this point. We're about halfway through. So if you were wondering how I managed to run all of these tanks, keep my costs down, make it as efficient as possible. It's just about thinking outside the box a little bit sometimes, being a little bit savvy, doing things like using one light bar across 4 tanks, especially on breeding tanks where you don't need super good lighting on everything. As long as it can grow some moss and some epiphytes and lets you see the shrimp, that's good enough. Running sponge filters means that I can run multiple sponges from a single pump. So in the shrimp room, I've got a bunch of these air pumps. Each one of them has 4 outlets, which allows me to run 4 tanks, which means these tanks here are literally running off of 2 plugs, 1 pump, 1 light. Also, like I said earlier, I don't use heaters. So by keeping the room at a certain temperature, I can avoid the cost of having a heating element in every single one of these tanks, using up loads of electricity all the time. Also with shrimp, you can keep them in lower temperatures than you will find answers on the internet. The thing is with shrimp as well, there's a lot of information that says shrimp can only be kept in certain temperature ranges. And that is true to an extent. If you were to consistently, day in, day out, keep the shrimp outside of those temperatures, you might run into some issues. You might do okay, but potentially you're going to have some issues. You might lose shrimp and they might not do so well. However, from my experience and what has worked for me with my shrimp room, the temperature can go as low as 12 degrees in here at night and back up into the 20s during the day at this time of year. And I don't have any issues with my tanks. Yes, my breeding is slower, but the shrimp will also live longer because their metabolism is slower due to the water being cooler. But it just goes to show that in some cases, like it has worked for me, you don't necessarily have to heat your shrimp tanks. And for those of you that might be wanting to keep a couple of tanks, but you're worried about the cost, that's a good way of keeping it down. And it will make your shrimp live longer. So in my eyes, that's a win-win. Moving on. So this is our middle shelf on the second rack, and this is 4 more shrimp tanks. And these tanks are quite cool because these are also our Habistax tanks. So I'm sure you've seen Habistax elsewhere on YouTube. Really awesome product, and I probably will get a video out on that at some point too. Now these guys here are what we call prismatic blues. Now these are a really cool Neocaradina. Effectively, they're blue in the flesh, but they can possess different colours on their shell. So as you can see here, this one's got almost like a reddish, coppery sort of colour to the top of its shell, but does still have a blue body. You take a look at this one just behind. It's almost got like a green jade shell with that sort of silvery gold backline on it. When you get a whole bunch of these guys together, you can see there is so much variation between all of them. They're a really cool Neocaradina. Hopefully, they'll be breeding soon and we'll be able to put them in our store. Moving on to the next tank. This is another Habistax tank. And these shrimp are called sun-kissed orange Neocaradinas. You get these ones that are just like what I'd call like maybe a normal orange. But you also get these ones that have all these different shades of orange mixed in. There's not much more to say about these guys, but they are a nice vibrant cherry shrimp. Moving on to our next tank. This is another Caradina tank now, and this is also another Habistax tank. I'm actually experimenting in this tank using the Habistax tower with only active substrate to see how that affects a Caradina setup. But these are the black fancy tigers, and these are one of my absolute favorites. Black fancy tigers are probably one of the better known and longest standing breed of Caradina. They are achieved by mixing crystal black shrimp with tiger shrimp. So Caradina cantonensis with Caradina serrata. They've been around for quite a while, but they've held their value really well. And they have a very intricate grading system to them too, which I'm sure I will cover in a future video at some point. But yeah, definitely one of my favorites. Now, when it comes to shrimp, this next tank is, to me, creme de la creme. This is my favorite tank with some of my favorite shrimp in it. This is where I keep my boas. When I started the shrimp keeping journey, this was always what I set as the goal that I wanted to hit, was to have a colony of boas. We got there, we've got it. So I love this tank. Some of the shrimp in here are just crazy to look at. You can see one of the metallic blue boas just down here. So that's actually an orange based boa with metallic blue over the top. And yeah, they blow my mind every time I look at them. They're so cool. And there are many more like that in here. But they all look slightly different to each other too. All of their patterns have slight variations to them. Colour can be slightly different also. Time to move on to the next tank. So this tank here is our blue diamonds. These are a Neocaradina, so these are cherry shrimp. And we're actually not going to be keeping these guys much longer, so we're going to be moving this colony on because we got some new shrimp that are going to be taking their place. But these are the second colony that I ever started when I started doing content creation and started doing Somerset Shrimp Shack as a business. These guys are a lovely blue. And like I said, this is my second oldest colony. The only colony older than these guys is my painted fire reds, which we'll be looking at next. So here are the painted fire reds. So again, Neocaradina Davidi, these are cherry shrimp. And I just don't think you can really beat the reds, can you? No matter how many times you go and look at other cool shrimp, you will always come back looking at the reds and going, oh, they are nice. Especially when they're this sort of grade. Obviously keep my ram's horns in there with them as well, so we've got pink pearls. And some of the other tanks we do have blue leopard ram's horns too. Now in this breeder box here, you're going to get a sneak peek of some shrimp that are going to be moving into where the blue diamonds are now, once the blue diamonds are gone. These are orange eye black rose Neocaradinas. These are going to be the main shrimp for a future project on the channel. Got these guys from Shrimp Factory. So big shout out to Shrimp Factory as well, because they hooked us up with some super nice shrimp here. Yeah, these guys are wicked. I can't wait to get them in their own tank. The last shrimp tank that we have is a bit of an ugly looking one, I'll be honest with you. This is a Growout tank. So this is where all of my Caradinas that we put on the website for sale, or any that don't have a home at the meantime because they're waiting for their own tank, this is where they all go. And in here we got a mixture of all sorts. We've got pandas, galaxy fishbones, there's a red steel, got some lower quality black fancy tigers, you got some lower quality boas. But there are some cool shrimp in here still. And like I said, some of these guys will go out on sale too. And in this little breeder box here, I've got a pair of pure white lines. They're a breeding pair, but we're just waiting for them to get large enough to actually start breeding. Now that brings us to the end of all of the shrimp tanks. I do still have 2 more tanks to show you, but I just thought I'd quickly show you the supplies rack as well. So this is where I keep all of my aquascaping supplies for future projects and other bits. So we've got loads of different types of wood up there, a couple of different bits of rock too. I do need to make sure we get some more varieties. That is just our refractometer for the marine tank. Little shrimp from Shrimp Cove. And then this is all of the chemicals, foods and everything that we need for all of the tanks. Here's just some odd bits, like all the botanicals that we sell on our website, and just some of our other bits that we sell too, like the accessories. And same as that all down there, extra sponge filters. On the bottom of this rack, we have just got loads and loads of different substrates. Some more botanicals, and then over there we got more chemicals. So I'm going to take us over really briefly to this next tank. This is our marine tank. And unfortunately, I can only show you so much of this tank because I don't want to ruin Nano Reef Part 2, which I'm currently filming for. So there's a couple things that you might have seen, you might not have, but I'll talk about these ones here. So this is a coral that I kind of just ended up picking up by accident. This is an orange bush coral. When I got it, I had no idea what it was. It was almost dead. I picked it up for a couple of pounds in an almost dead corals bin at my local Maidenhead and brought it back to try and revive it. And it is starting to come back. And the same with this one over here, which is a devil's hand finger leather. And I've actually fragged it as well. There's our regal damsel. You would have seen in the end of the last part of the video the Zoa rock and the pulsing xenia just here. But that's all I can show you of this tank for the meantime. Sorry. And then last but not least, the high-tech 80 litre. And does it not look incredible since we finished this project? So if you haven't already seen it on our channel, there is a 3-part series where you can see this built from start to finish. And yeah, it's almost there. But I love this tank. It's definitely one of my favorites. And I think it's probably one of the better ones that I've ever done. I'm actually quite proud of this one. Livestock wise in here, we've got some serpent loaches. We've got some Achesis vespa catfish. They're very cool. Serpent loaches, they're awesome. 2 very cool bottom dwelling fish. We've got a lovely school red neon blue eye dwarf rainbow fish. Pseudomusial luminatus. These guys are gorgeous. And they've coloured up really nicely since we put them in here too. Got some Amanos, as you can see. And we did recently add 2 of these, which are gold spotted shrimp. I'm still learning about them, but we'll probably do a little bit of a video on them at some point too. All of the plants are growing lovely. All this hygrophila is doing great. We've got 6 or 7 different types of hygrophila in here. And it is all starting to come through lovely now. All that boost Philandra is looking really healthy. This Nymphoides went mad. I had to trim loads of it back already. When I said that this tank's finished, that was kind of a bit of a fib, because there's part 4 coming very, very soon. I'll be taking this tank to a level of high tech that not a lot of people will be doing. And I've got some really cool equipment turning up for this tank that's going to set it apart from the rest. So keep an eye out for part 4 over the next few months, because it's going to be pretty cool. And that's the end of the tour. So I hope you guys enjoyed looking through all of the tanks that we've got, what we're keeping in there and how we're doing it. And I hope it gives you a bit more insight on how to do it if you wanted to do it yourself. If there's any questions you had, if you think I missed anything, if there was anything you wanted me to cover in a bit more detail, drop it down in the comments. And please don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.